A $500 website and a $15,000 website can look nearly identical when you compare them on a computer screen. They might have the same pages, very similar picture choices and font choices. So you'd assume that you're paying 30 times more for a slightly nicer version of exactly the same website, but you're not. The price has much less to do with what's on the computer screen and a whole lot more to do with the 4 layers that sit underneath the screen that a budget website omits. I've been building websites for coaches and consultants for almost 8 years now. I've done over 150 of them, and I'm going to walk you through all 4 layers: the strategy, the words, the technical work that nobody really pays attention to, and the design decisions that turn visitors into paying clients. One of those 4 I hear very few designers actually talking about. At the end, I'll give you my honest answer on when a $15,000 website is worth it for you and when it would just be a waste of money. When most coaches hire a web designer, they think that they are hiring a clicker, someone who is just a little bit better at making things look nicer than they are, who can just take the task off their plate. And at $500, that is pretty much exactly what you get. You hand someone your pages, they build their interpretation of what they think that you want, and then they hand it back to you. But at the premium level, the website job is a very different animal. Before I design anything, I always have a series of calls with my clients where I start asking questions that most coaches have never been asked about their business. I ask things like, what would someone actually type into Google to find you? Because what you call yourself and what your client is searching at 11 p.m. when they finally decide to fix the problem that you help with are almost never the same thing. Another question I ask is, how do you want your potential clients to feel when they visit your website? I had a client in the widowed mom space answer that question very thoughtfully. She said, I want it to feel alive. I don't want my website to feel like another depressing grief group. And that answer decided her colors, her fonts, it decided the whole layout. A $500 designer just typically doesn't have the experience to ask these kinds of questions. And that's not because they're bad at their job. It's just because it's not what you hired them to do. They build what they think you want them to build, which means that all of the actual thinking is still sitting on you. So the first thing that you're paying for is someone to do that thinking before anyone opens any design tool. But thinking is invisible. So what do we actually turn thinking into? It turns into the first layer, which is strategy. And on the premium level, strategy is actually where most of the work lies, because the design, like we said earlier, it does not even start until the strategic layer is done. Those strategy calls that I have with my clients turn into deliverables. What we create is an ideal client avatar. We also create a design mood board so that we can be really clear on the look and feel of the site. And we make a site map so that we can be sure that the site has only the pages that the client needs and not any of the ones that it doesn't. The site map is often the one that really surprises people. I always like to create 3 versions of it. We always create like a bare bones one with everything that you need, and then one with everything that you need plus stuff that you didn't even know to ask for. It's basically a menu, and picking from the sitemap together is how we scope the whole project around what is really going to be the best fit for you and for where you want to take your business. On a $500 website, there really is no menu like this. There's no sitemap. Someone takes, okay, you want a homepage, an about page, a contact form. We're going to build exactly that. Nobody ever asks if those are even the right pages. So that's layer 1. A budget site builds what you asked for. A premium website figures out what you actually need first. Once you know what the site needs to do, then somebody needs to actually find the words to do it. And that's the layer that I promised you most other designers are not talking about. It's the copy. Copy is just the marketing words that we put on the web page. And specifically, I like to think about the order that we write the copy in. Almost everyone designs first and then kind of pours the words onto the designed page afterwards. We do the opposite. So strategy comes first, then copy, and then we design around the copy. And my copywriter and designer actually work in the same file at the same time. And here's why that matters. On a recent project, I left a note in the copy doc that we were working in saying, hey, I think this one heading might be trying to do a little bit too much. My designer saw it, and then he decided, hey, I think we should just split this into a heading and a subheading, And then the whole section just suddenly opened up and became a lot more scannable, a lot more readable, because there was enough breathing room in the design to make it readable. On a $500 site, the copy is just going to be whatever you handed over to your designer. It's typically going to be dropped into the template that the designer already created. The words have to bend or be shortened to fit the layout, or they might risk looking way too text heavy. With us, the layout really bends to fit the words. In that way, the page feels like it's built around the message instead of the other way around. So that's layer 2. But the best words in the world do not matter if the page does not load quickly on every device. That's layer 3, and it really is the layer that you're never going to see, and that is kind of the point. Things like speed, how the page works on mobile. Is it accessible? None of that really shows up in a screenshot, but if your site takes 15 seconds to load, then your visitor's already going to be gone before the first image even appears. A $500 site pretty much skips that optimization work, and because you as a non-technical person are not really aware that it exists, you're not going to be able to tell that it's even a problem until the site is crawling really slowly, or it's just not loading for people who visit on their phone, and you have no idea why or really how to fix it. So that's layer 3, and it really is the layer that decides whether or not a site is going to function smoothly for people that visit it. And once it works, once it's fast, once it loads fine for everybody that's on their phone, once it's accessible, there is still one question left. And that is, does this website actually turn visitors into clients? And that's layer 4. It's the one that really pays for all the others. It's conversion design. Every single layout decision is deliberate, but instead of just telling you that, let me show you. I've got a client, Megan, who sells supplements. She's had 2 years of very flat, kind of slowly decreasing sales. When we rebuilt her sales page, the hardest part wasn't actually the look. It was, how do we lay out the pricing? Her old layout really kind of buried the pricing options. And she told me herself that, when she initially built the page, she didn't really have any idea what she was doing. And so the shopping cart was a little bit wonky. So we worked out the layout together. The first idea that we threw out had us hiding the prices inside of a drop-down selector. And so people couldn't see all of the pricing options at the same time. And I just don't love that, because I find that when you hide things in like a carousel or a drop down, people don't tend to always click it. And we definitely didn't want to hide those pricing options. So we decided, nope, you know what? We're going to put all 4 options out in the open instead. And then we talked about the wording. We decided that for the subscription option, she really wants everyone to pick. We called it subscribe and save. It's the same phrase that Amazon uses because it works. It names the benefit front and center instead of just the price. And on the discounts, we decided, you know what, we're going to write the big discount as a dollar amount, save $26, but the small price points, let's just list those as percentages, because save 5%, it just sounds a little bit more impressive than saying save $5, even though it really is the same discount. A $500 site would have likely just kind of taken her pricing, dropped it on the page. We wouldn't have had any of this back and forth strategic thinking about, okay, how do we really lay this out so that it's easy for people to see which option is going to be best for them, click, and buy. And that really mattered because Megan's sales doubled within a month of launching this new sales page. And that's really layer 4. It's not necessarily about just making the page look good. It's about making sure that it's actually going to be high converting for you. One quick thing before we keep going, if you want to see how all of this maps onto an actual coaching site, I put together a free video series called The Coach Website Blueprint. It walks through really the exact pages, the exact section by section structure that a website needs to actually bring in clients. So you can get that at the link in the description, or go to jennielakenan.com/blueprint. Everything I've shown you so far happens before the website launches, but a big part of what you're paying for only kicks in after launch. When I first started asking clients for feedback, the thing that they brought up most wasn't the design. It was actually the process. That was the smoothest project I've ever been a part of. I hear that one a lot. We've really honed our process after years of this work. And that actually directly benefits you as the client post-launch too, because a premium team's reputation is really tied to whether the site actually works. So the launch is not the finish line. It really is just the start of the relationship. We've got close to 100 clients on our post-launch website care plans. And here's what that is actually for. A client I've worked with for 6 years now sent me an email the other day in a total panic because she was coming up on a big webinar and her web host sent her a message saying, hey, there's a storage problem on your website. It's taking up too much storage and you need to clean it up in 5 days. Otherwise, your site is going to start being really slow and you might not be able to make changes to it anymore. To her, that was a pretty terrifying email to get, especially just a couple of weeks before a big launch. But for me, it was just kind of like a normal Tuesday because we fix this sort of thing pretty routinely. So we went in, we cleaned up her database, we cleared out the old backups that were causing the storage to be really heavy. We also moved her onto Cloudflare to help deal with some bot traffic that she was getting that was really slowing things down. She was able to walk into her launch without a hitch. She sold her program. And then afterwards, she sent me a voice message. She said, when I first hired you, that $247 a month for your care plan was kind of scary to me because it was a big expense at the time. But now I just love that I can email you. And when something comes up, I know it's just going to be taken care of. On a $500 site, when an email like that from your host shows up, you're on your own. The person who built it, they got paid and they likely moved on months ago. So that's the last thing that you really are paying for. Someone who actually responds to your messages when it matters and is your long-term partner for website care and website strategy. A premium website really does win on a lot of different layers. So the strategy, the words, the technical side, the conversion, and just having a solid team behind it, which means the obvious next question is, should everyone go get one? And this is where I want to be really straight with you. The answer is no. Not every coach needs a $15,000 website. And it probably shouldn't say that on YouTube, but I'm going to because I mean it. Because everything that I just walked you through, the strategy, the words, the conversion design, it all solves one very specific problem. And it's not a traffic problem. It's a conversion problem. The clients who I have seen have the biggest wins, the biggest results from the work that we do together are the ones that have one thing in common. They already have people landing on their website. Those people just weren't reaching out to them. The website really was the bottleneck, not the audience. So if you're still building your audience, if you're still figuring out your niche, if you're still landing your first few paying clients, then a $15,000 website is probably not your next move. You'd be pouring all of this conversion work into traffic that just isn't even present yet. What I would have our work be together instead is to start strategic, but start smaller. We would build a solid kind of one-page site with scheduling, email marketing, a very clear message. It would have very similar thinking behind it. We could do the research beforehand. It would just be a smaller scope. And that really would be a foundation that then we could build off of as you're ready to grow and add pages and features down the line. Here's when you know you are ready to make that bigger investment with your website. You've already got the traffic coming, you're running ads, maybe you're putting out YouTube videos, or you're getting ready to speak at a big event, and you're sitting there thinking, okay, all of these people are about to land on my website, and it's going to confuse them, and I don't know what's going to happen after that. If you really don't want that to cost you, that feeling right there is the signal that it is time. That is exactly when a premium website can really pay for itself, because you really only need to land a few of those clients in order to make that investment back. The goal really is to invest in a website that matches the stage of business that you are at. So the next time you see a $500 website and a $15,000 website sitting side by side, looking similar, looking almost identical, now you know that the difference is actually not really what's on the screen. It's the strategy that happened before anyone designed anything. It's the words that were written first and the website is built around them. It's the technical work that you don't really see but makes a difference on the back end. It's the conversion design that turns visitors into clients. And it's the team that is still there long after launch. If you're at the point where you want to talk about what it would look like for you and I to work together, the link to work with me is in the description.